Assalamualaikum and greetings. So in this video, I will explain the first part of the data analysis process using Jamovi software. So this study aimed to examine the factor that influence purchase intention, namely security system, website reputation, trust perception person, website visual and design, and purchase intention itself. After the data collection process, a total of 60 respondent participants in this study the collected response where we are analyzed using Jamovi to perform descriptive statistic, demographic analysis, normality testing, and the correlation analysis. So this data view section in Jamovi, where all the raw data collected from the respondent are displayed. So each row represent one respondent, while each column represent a variable or questionnaire item used in this research. So the data set consists of the two main sections. The first section contains the respondent demographic information, which include age and gender. The second section contains the questionnaire response for each research construct. So all questionnaire items we are measured using a 5-point like a scale, ranking from 1 strongly disagree to 5. So strongly agree. A higher score indicate a high level of agreement with the statement. So the first construct is a security system, which consists of 11 items from SS1 to SS11. So this item measure respondent perception of the website security, so including information protection, safety, and confidence when using the system. So the second construct is a website reputation, which consists of the 3 items WR1 to WR3 that evaluate the credibility, reliability, and overall reputation of the website. So next is the trust perception person, which contain 4 items, TPP1 to TPP4. So this item measure the respondent level of trust toward the person of party associated with the website. So the fourth construct is a website visual and design, which include 3 items, the WVD1 to WVD3. So this item assess the website appearance, which is layout, and overall use experience. So lastly, purchase intention consists of a 6 item, which is a PL1 to the PI6, which measure the respondent willingness and intention to make a purchase. So overall, this measurement item we analyzed to provide a better understanding of the respondent perception and to examine the relationship between the variable in this study.
Now, I will explain the descriptive statistic result for all variables in the study. Based on the analysis, a total of 60 respondents were involved. The output also shows that there were no missing values for all variables. This means that all responses collected from the respondents were complete and valid to be used for further analysis. For the first construct is security system. The mean value was 3.23 with a standard deviation of 0.903. This indicates that respondents generally had a moderate level of agreement regarding the importance and effectiveness of the security system in this website. Next, website reputation recorded a mean value of 3.27 with a standard deviation of 1.11. This showed that respondents had a moderately positive perception towards the reputation of the website, although the higher standards deviation suggests that their opinions were slightly varied. For trust perception person, the mean value was 3.24 with a standard deviation of 0.829. This suggests that respondents generally showed a moderate level of trust perception, and the lower standard deviation indicates that their responses were quite consistent. Meanwhile, website visual and design recorded a mean value of 3.31 with a standard deviation of 0.954. This showed that respondents slightly agreed that the visual appearance and design of the website play an important role in influencing their perception. And lastly, purchase intention obtained the highest mean value, which was 3.43 with a standard deviation of 1.07. This indicates that among all construct, respondents show the strongest tendency towards purchase intention. In other words, respondents were more likely to consider making a purchase compared to the other factors measured in this study. So, from this result, it can be seen that all the construct received mean score above 3.00. This indicates that the respondents generally show a moderate to positive level of agreement towards variables measured in this study. In addition, the minimum and maximum values range from 1 to 5, which confirm that all responses were within Likert support range used in the questionnaire.
So next, I will explain the demographic analysis of the respondent. This study involved a total of 60 respondents based on the descriptive statistic. The mean age of the respondent is 22.2 years old, while the median age is 23 years old. This shows that most respondents are within a similar age range and are generally in their early 20s. In addition, the standard deviation for age is 1.56, which indicates that the age of the respondents are not widely spread out from the mean. In other words, the variation in age is relatively small, meaning that most respondents are close in age to one another. The minimum age recorded in the study is 18 years old, while the maximum age is 24 years old. This means that the respondents fall within the young adult age group, which is suitable for the context of this study. Referring to the age bar chart, the figure shows that the average age of the respondent is approximately 22 years old. Next, I will explain the gender distribution of the respondents. The respondents in this study are divided into two categories, which are female and male. Based on the frequency data, 37 respondents are male, representing 61.7% of the total sample. Meanwhile, 23 respondents are female, representing 38.3% of the respondents. Based on the gender bar chart, it can be clearly seen that the number of male respondents is higher than female respondents. The bar for male respondents is taller, which indicates that male participants make up the larger proportion of the sample. Therefore, it shows that the majority of the respondents in this study are male.
Next, I will explain the plots for each main construct. The first plot represents the security system construct. The average score is 3.23, which indicates that respondents have a moderate perception towards the security aspect of the system. The second plot represents website reputation. The mean score of 3.27 indicates that respondents have a positive perception toward the website reputation and credibility. The third plot represents trust perception person. The mean score of 3.24 shows that respondents have a moderate level of trust towards the related test. The fourth plot represents website visual and design. The mean score of 3.31 indicates that the respondents have a relatively positive opinion toward the website design and visual element. The final represents purchase intention. This construct obtains the highest mean value of 3.43, showing that respondents have a higher tendency or willingness to make a purchase. Overall, the plot shows that all constructs receive average score above the midpoint of the Likert scale.
Next, I will explain the result of normality test. The purpose of the normality test is determine whether the data collection follow a normal distribution. This step is important because the result help us to decide which is statistical test is the most appropriate for analysis the data. If the data is normal distribute, we can use parametric test. However, if the data not normal distribute, a non-parametric test is more suitable. So, first, let's look to the QQ plot. A QQ plot is a graph that compares the distribution of the collection data with a normal distribute. If the most data points are close diagonal reference line, it indicates the data is more approximately normal distribute. The further points move away from the line, the greater deviation from normality. So next, we look to trust perfection percent variable. Most of the data are located close to diagonal line. This suggests that the data has some characteristic of normal distribution. However, there are still a few points that deviate from the line, especially at certain parts of graph, indicating that the data is not perfectly normal. So next, we look at purchase intention variable. The data points also generally follow the diagonal line. However, there are more noticeable deviation, particularly at extreme ends of the plot. This deviation suggests that the distribution differs from the perfect distribution. To confirm the visual observation from the QQ plot, we also refer the Shapiro-Wilk test, which is a statistical test used to assess normality. For trust perception percent, the Shapiro-Wilk statistic is 0.959 with p-value of 0.041. And then for the purchase intention, the Shapiro statistic is 0.945 with a p-value of 0.009. In the Shapiro-Wilk test, if the p-value is greater than 0.05, the data is considered normal distribute. On the other hand, if the p-value less than 0.05, the data is considered significant deviate from a normal distribute. Since both variables have p-value below 0.05, we reject the assumption of normality. This means both trust perception percent and purchase intention are not normal distribute. Therefore, using the parametric correlation test such as Pearson correlation, this study used Sherman RHO correlation. Sherman RHO is non-parametric statistical test that does not require the data to be normal distribute, making it the most appropriate method for analyze the relationship between the variable in this study.
Finally, I will explain the correlation analysis and conclusion of the study. The correlation analysis was conducted to examine the relationship between trust perception percent and purchase intention. In this study, the purpose of the correlation analysis is to determine whether there is a significant relationship between users' level of trust and their intention to make a purchase. Based on the Sperman's RHO correlation analysis,
The correlation coefficient obtained is 0.440. This value shows a positive relationship between trust perception person and purchase intention. Since the value is the moderate range, it indicates the relationship between these two variables is moderately positive. In addition, the p-value is less than 0.001. This means that the relationship is statistically significant. Therefore, the result shows the trust perception person has a meaningful relationship with purchase intention. The positive correlation value also means that when users have a higher level of trust, their purchase intention also tends to increase. In other words, users who trust a person, seller, or source are more likely to show interest or intention to purchase. This suggests that trust is an important factor that can influence consumer decision making. So, overall, in conclusion, this study analyzed data from 16 respondents using Jamovi software. The descriptive analysis shows that all constructs receive moderate to positive response from the respondents. This indicates that the respondents generally gave favorable response toward the variables measured in the study. For the demographic analysis, the result shows that most of the respondents are male and the average age of the respondent is 22.2 years old. This means that the study mostly represents young adult respondents. Next, the normality test shows that the data is not normally distributed. Because of this, Spearman's RHO correlation analysis was used instead of person correlations. Spearman RHO is more suitable for data that does not meet the normality assumption.